So my definition of a food desert, to me, there are two components to what constitutes a food desert. I think the major component is lack of access. So people just not having, so whether you have a grocery store in your backyard and you can't afford the nutritious good foods, I think, we could think of food deserts, at least for certain populations in that, to that extent. Then I think the second piece of the food desert question also has to do with proximity, actual physical space. So for instance, I told a story earlier about how when I was growing up, when I would go to the grocery store with my mom, she would always comment on, especially with the fruits and vegetables, how they were so different. And when I say different, I don't mean different in a good way, different in a bad way.
In your neighborhood?
Yeah, in our neighborhood, which was working class, mainly African American, compared to other more affluent communities. The exact same store, the exact same price, but very different offerings. So, I think generally people think of food deserts just as places where you don't have access to certain supermarkets or produce or whatever. And I think that's a fine definition. But I think just thinking about just from A to Z, how people are actually having access to good, nutritious foods. I think food deserts could mean something broader than that. I think there could be a grocery store in your backyard, but if their grocery store doesn't have adequate amount of produce, adequate amount of nutritious foods at the same quality as the exact same store in other communities, then I think arguably you can say that that neighborhood could be a food desert.
I think just to touch on what you said, I would just tighten it up by saying lack of access to quality foods. I think food is everywhere, but the access to quality foods is how I define food deserts. I remember growing up, we used to eat the vegetables out of the bag, and you heat it up in the microwave, or you boil it on the stove. Like those are our vegetables.
You mean the frozen?
Yeah, the frozen vegetables. And then I remember as I kind of got to college and started going to the grocery store, I can't remember the last time I ate the food out of the bag. Now I'd rather go to the farmers markets and get the fresh foods, the fresh vegetables. So lack of access to quality food is my definition for food desert.
I think both of you all kind of covered the different aspects of what food deserts are. And I have to agree with all three definitions to a certain degree. And I think it really is about access to food within your community, not having to go, an hour away to be able to secure quality food.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Access via, price, access via location, and then the quality of the food, nutritional value of the food. That's what qualifies as my definition. If I can't go home and within half a mile go to a grocery store and be able to get dinner for tonight or plan for the week, that significantly impacts my ability to operate in the city.
Absolutely.
And just think about people, especially those that come from. So we know from the DC's article. Does anyone know the title of their article? I want to give a shout out to Christina Sturdivant, who wrote the DC's article on food deserts. And what they found is that wards 5, 7, and 8, there are only 3 grocery stores, if I remember correctly. 7 and 8. There are only 3 grocery stores for how many residents? 150,000. Only 3 grocery stores. So just imagine living in that type of environment where maybe you do have to travel. You're already talking about a low-income community or a community with many low-income residents. And now they have to take time and money to go travel to buy,
and planning and there are already obstacles you have to overcome. So you're doing extra planning, and it's just another hurdle in your life.
I think. Oh, sorry to cut you. I think that was a great way to kind of highlight what's going on in the communities for DC is to kind of tackle this particular topic. I think it's a great thing. I think kind of bringing it top of mind to so many people, because it's interesting. I think that article was last week or 2 weeks ago, and then there was another article in the Express paper yesterday just about the same thing. So people are talking about it because you see all these stores popping up in all the other neighborhoods. Like, what's going on over here? You know, so I think it's great that it's being talked about.